Hello and welcome back to another episode of Ink to Paper, Stories and Interviews. I am your host, H.A. Spector. I hope you all enjoyed our previous guest, Chloe Longstreet, and our discussion on the indie publishing journey. If you haven't taken a listen and you are thinking about indie publishing, you should definitely go check it out. This week on the show, though, I'm excited to jump into an interview with guests. That's right, you heard me, guests, plural, as we talk about the journey of starting an online speculative fiction magazine. So let's get right to it. Today's guests have banded together to create, edit, and produce the online speculative fiction magazine Snoozine. They are all current students or alumni of SNHU's creative writing programs. So please join me in welcoming Kirsten, Jessi, Suzanne, and Randall to the show. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks for having us. We're so excited to talk.
Thanks again for taking your time to jump on. I really appreciate that. And let's go ahead and jump straight into our icebreaker questions. So first question I got to ask is, what made you all want to start writing?
Well, I'll go ahead and go first. So I have been writing as long as I can remember. Whenever I was in kindergarten, I had a teacher that was very supportive of reading and writing. She would let me borrow her personal books and take them home. And, I don't remember a time when I didn't enjoy writing. In fact, I remember, she told me that one day when I was a published author, I would dedicate my first book to her. So that's still the plan. I'm still not there, but that is the plan. So
that is so fun. I love that you had from a young age someone that believed in you, and that's really cool.
Yeah, that's really wholesome. And I feel like my interactions with writing when I was younger was not quite so wholesome. I've always really enjoyed writing, but in the third grade, I had to write an assignment, and I ended up turning in fan fiction of Yu-Gi-Oh, and my dreams were dashed after that. It did result in an almost parent-teacher conference. And so I kind of gave it up for a minute. But in adulthood, I came back to it through Dungeons and Dragons because I became a DM whose table no longer wanted to play source material. So, through writing campaigns, I was like, oh, actually, I really enjoy this. I want to do this again. I'll just avoid the Yu-Gi-Oh fan fiction.
That's so cool because I also am a DM of my own homebrew content.
Hey,
so look at that. That's awesome. That's definitely a great way to get into writing for sure.
Yeah. I recommend it to a lot of my friends that write now. Like, DM one campaign. It'll help you with all of your problems with plot, figuring out character.
Absolutely.
Like Randall, I have been writing for as long as I can remember, or at least wanted to write for as long as I can remember. I don't know if it was it had to have been second grade. We had a reading rainbow contest, and we had to write a little book and submit it to our school. And I think mine won, and it was published in the school library. And I was so proud of that. But I don't think I really realized how important writing was to me until I read Harry Potter. I had a spiritual experience when I read Harry Potter. And so I always wanted to write something that would have that same effect on at least one person, the way that Harry Potter affected me. So that has been my goal in this whole writing experience.
It's a lofty goal and such a worthy goal. Because if you can, Harry Potter is magical, and it meant a lot to so many people. And so I think that is definitely a worthy goal to hang on to.
Yeah. At least one. Just one person.
Hey, all it takes is one.
Yeah. You can do it, babe. We believe in you.
Absolutely.
All right, Suze, don't be shy.
Well, I've always loved telling me a good story, and I'm not going to lie, I should have had glasses a lot earlier in my life than I do now. And so I couldn't necessarily see what I was writing, so I'd have my great-grandma write it for me so that way people could actually read it. But that was the big thing of okay, grandma, okay, great-grandma, today's story is, and then we would do it, and then I would draw pictures for it. Thankfully, my drawing has gotten way better with time as well.
Well, that makes one of us, so that's good. That's really cool. I think that's cool that you had another outlet that you could use to express your stories and get it out there, or at least get it written down. You know, I also needed glasses probably in like first or second grade, and I didn't get them until fourth grade. And I just would come home every day from elementary school and be like, I have such a bad headache. And my mom would be like, well, I don't know, take some medicine, whatever. And I loved children's Tylenol as a kid. I don't know if I should be admitting this on mic, but it's fine. I used to make up excuses and be like, oh, I have a headache when I didn't, because I loved the grape tablets that were chewable. They just tasted so good. I'm a weird kid. Anyway.
No, you are not weird, because let me tell you, my toddler all the time will be like, I don't feel so good. I'm sick. And we'll fake cough because he wants the grape liquid Tylenol.
Yes. Why do they make it taste so good? I don't understand.
I don't know. I can't relate, but I believe you.
It's so weird.
I don't know what it is, but it yeah. Anyway, so I relate to that. Definitely needed glasses sooner than I did, but I'm so glad that you had that outlet. And then moving on to, so what inspired you all to seek your master's degrees in creative writing? I know some of you took the MFA program and some of you did not take the MFA program, but you did the other MA program. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I think all of us at least started in the master's program. So I graduated with my master's and then moved on to an MFA program at a different university.
Awesome.
So I'm currently doing that.
Cool. That's awesome. So what inspired you all to start that journey?
Well, so I had a career as an English teacher abroad. And when I finished that contract, I realized I did not want to continue working with children and was really soul searching to figure out what career I wanted to do, because I also didn't want to do my undergrad in psychology. So I was running out of options.
Yeah.
And also, DMing at the time. And I was like, yeah, I really like this. And I don't have any like formal studies in it. So I want to go to a master's program and really make sure that I know what I need to know,
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, like I said, I've always written. I finished my first book or my first manuscript, I should say. It's not a book yet. Probably about 10, 12 years ago. And I could never really get any traction with it. And, I kept writing, and I had gone for my undergrad in a related field to writing. I had done professional communications because I chickened out and I let people convince me to go for something sensible instead of what I actually wanted to do with my life. And, I kind of had a realization a few years ago. I was like, this matters to me. This is what I want to do. Writing is the only thing that has never made me feel like long-term frustrated or like it's always felt right. Like it's what I'm supposed to be doing. So
yeah,
I was like, I'm going for my master's. As soon as I finished it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do my MFA too. So I went ahead and went into the MFA, finished it as well, because I want to take it seriously. It's there's a lot of benefit that I've achieved from it, including meeting almost everybody in this room, because I had classes with you as well, Heath. So
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's been a big life changer for me.
That's really cool. And I'm happy that you found your way back and you found your way past those dissenting voices to follow your true passion. That's great.
I'm not gonna lie, mine was procrastination. I realized after I got my degree in kinesiology, and I realized I don't know if I actually wanted to be a PT. And so then I was like, oh, okay, I like teaching. I like the business part. So I started double majoring in business and early childhood education. And then I'm like 2 classes away from both of those. And then I was like, wait, I love writing.
Relatable. So relatable.
Yes,
so then I started
absolutely.
the master's. And then I'm not going to lie, I have I have the thesis and a lit class left for the master's program.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I cried a lot during my other 2 lit classes, so I'm like, you know what? MFA.
Yeah.
You're collecting
Awesome.
unfinished degrees like Infinity Stones.
Exactly.
Similar to Suze, when I got out of the Navy in 2012, I went to a community college for a couple of years, and then I think I went to 2 or 3 different online colleges for my bachelor's degree. It took me 7 years to get my bachelor's degree because I was just not motivated. I went from early childhood education to psychology to English, which is what I finally graduated with
Mm-hmm.
because English is something I've always really loved. And I would not probably have finished it if I hadn't met my husband, because honestly, he gave me a swift kick in the butt every time I did not want to do my homework.
Yeah.
He is like the main reason I actually graduated with my bachelor's degree. And then this guy over here has his bachelor's degree. He has 2 different master's degrees. He's working on his doctorate degree. So I was like, well, I guess I can go for my master's. And I went with SNHU's MA program because I was like, oh, this will actually like force me to like work on and finish like a manuscript.
Yeah.
Because I had never actually completed anything before.
Mm-hmm.
So I started with the MA program because I don't think I realized the MA and the MFA were different when I started until I took Dr. Max's, I don't even remember what class it was, but I took one of Dr. Max's classes and she was like, oh, there's an MFA program too. And I was like, this is the one that I'm supposed to be taking because this is the one that will actually help me finish.
Yeah.
So I switched to the MFA program. Like Suze, we finished our stuff.
That's
It's
incredible.
all done. I like finished my draft 0 and I like wrote to be continued because it's going to be a series, and I showed it to my husband and I cried.
That's incredible. That feeling must be, I can't even imagine. I'm there. I'm right behind you guys. I'm like 2 classes away, and I'm excited, but also just like, oh man, it's going to feel weird and incredible at the same time.
Definitely.
So, and having a partner that like offers accountability and support is so huge. So that's awesome that you have that, Kirsten.
Oh yeah. I don't know what I can't remember anything. So he's always like, hey, do you have any homework due today? And now he doesn't have to worry about it.
No, he doesn't. It's all finished. That's incredible.
He'll probably keep asking you just in case.
Just in case.
Just in case. Last minute homework. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for answering my icebreaker questions. Let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. So today's discussion is all about the online speculative fiction magazine Snoozine, which seems like a big undertaking, but also a worthwhile one. So, and maybe I just don't understand how online zines work, but hey, we're going to find out tonight. So let's jump straight into some questions. And so the first question I have for you all, in no particular order, you guys can all feel free to chime in wherever, is let's start at the beginning, right? All journeys start in a tavern. That's D&D, sorry.
Of course.
All journeys start at the beginning. And so I got to ask, how did this idea come up and what made you all decide to band together and make it happen?
Well, it's funny that you say that because we were actually sitting in a tavern.
Yeah, actually, we had ale in our hands, and there was a barkeep who happened to give us this idea.
That's incredible.
But actually, it did come from our shared professor, our beloved mentor, Maxie Jane Frazier. Please Google her. She's a fantastic Flash and Micro writer and editor. Check out Mighty Mule Editing. We're plugging for her.
Awesome.
We were all in a Slack space with Dr. Max, and she had thrown out an idea like, guys, wouldn't it be so crazy if someone started a magazine out of my students? And we took the bait. We were like, actually, yeah, that is a really good idea.
We took the bait. Well, and she even named it because SNU is from SNHU.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And so she was like, something SNU related, maybe? SNU. And we were like, zine.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's really right there. And everything for like the original concepts just kind of stemmed out of that because snoozing, snoozing, sleepy time. It just kind of, I really feel like it wrote itself. It was very serendipitous.
Well, first off, I love that you all have a professor that you kind of shared this experience with that pushed you beyond just the normal program and pushed you beyond the normal curriculum and goals and whatever to create something even bigger and better and incredible. And so So talk about like the start of that process. Like how do you guys, you have the idea is presented, you all take the bait and you're like, yes, we're going to do it. We're going to start a magazine. What does it look like? What are the elements there? How many moving pieces do you have to manage?
Yeah, so getting everything from that original idea of, okay, maybe we should do it, to where we're at now took a lot of messages like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's keep talking about this. Everyone, let's hop in this Zoom call. Everyone, let's make a Discord channel. Everyone, it was a lot of just organizing ways to speak to each other at first. And I am a Google Forms goblin. I thrive off of the forums and data and whatnot. So as soon as we got a band of people together who were interested, I was like, all right, no takesy backsies. And I made a Google form to ask everyone what their vision for this was and what they really wanted to get out of being an editor for a magazine. If this is something that they just kind of want to be kind of loosey-goosey about, do we want to have like bigger aspirations? And once we kind of got that long-term goal and like that overarching goal together, we all sat down together to figure out what the stepping stones needed to be to get there.
Yeah, it took us about 6 months to get from point A to opening
to point A and a half.
Yeah.
It did. It took a lot of laying the groundwork, right? Because we had to come up with what are our themes going to look like? What are our cycles going to be contractually? What rights are we going to ask for? Ugh, so scary. There was just a lot that we had to figure out before we felt comfortable going public.
Yeah. And I mean, the year that we've been open, we've had so many changes already. Like if you go to our Instagram and look at some of our first Instagram posts.
Definitely. We live and we learn.
Yeah. I feel like that's life, right?
Absolutely.
You start somewhere and then you usually end up completely somewhere else down the line, even just a few steps down the road. So
yeah, what is it? That Japanese concept of kaizen, one of the two, where it's like continuous improvement. Always look for ways to improve, right? So I want to think that we do that.
Absolutely. So that's really cool. So you said that you posted on you're posting on Instagram, and that is I'm assuming that's like where you guys started to do your advertising and things like that, drumming up a readership through that. Now, is the magazine, it's an online magazine, so do people just subscribe with their email? Is there like a website they can go to like access it and read stories from past issues? Like kind of how do you have all that set up?
So right now we are primarily based on our website, which we are revamping at the moment. We're giving her a facelift. She's going to be so beautiful. But yeah, you can just come to the website, and we have each of our issues up there that we've published so far, and you can find each individual piece there. What we're moving toward, now that we have one full volume under our belt, we're done with that one, and we are putting the finishing touches on volume 2 now. So what we plan on doing is this is going to sound so confusing. Once the next volume is out, we are taking everything from the previous volume and we are actually compiling that into a PDF that can be printed if you want to, and using it like that, right? So it'll be completely free online and easy to access while the volume is still releasing. And then once that volume is good, put it in a PDF, which you can download for free. Or if you want to be super nice and give us a donation, you can do that too. But that's just how it'll be to keep the website clean and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So donation-based, free to access, but donation-based if people get something from it or want to offer their support to the magazine.
Yeah, absolutely. Until we can pay our authors, we really don't feel the most comfortable completely selling the magazine. We can go into ethics and all of that, but we'd want to be able to support authors. And so we ask that people give us donations so that we can start building up that base to start paying. Once we start paying, then, we can move on from there.
So do you all currently accept submissions from writers for the magazine, or are you guys currently producing your own stories to keep the magazine volumes flowing? Is it kind of a mixture of both? Like, where are you at with that process?
So we have moved our submission windows around just a little bit from how we have been doing it. We have been staying open for about a month, and then we will have a month where we work on the magazine, and then another month where we're releasing whatever we've built up. So we're in the process of revamping that. We're still working out the details of exactly what that's going to look like going forward, but that's been the process up to this point. We'll have submission windows, but our website will have the most up to date information on when we're going to be open for submissions.
Awesome. And are you guys currently where are you getting your stories from currently? Are you going through the SNHU student population for the most part? Do you have other avenues like through your Instagram? Are you putting out calls for submission through Instagram? Kind of where are you getting people for that month that you currently are open? Where are you getting people to see, what type of stories you're looking for? And yeah.
We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads currently. I think we're looking into getting into Bluesky, but we haven't quite gotten into there yet. But definitely Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. And we post like open submission calls saying that we're open for submissions. Especially on Instagram, there's a pretty good writing magazine community on there. So they're pretty good at like sharing each other's stuff and like helping us get submissions. So that's mostly where we're at, and that's where we get most of our submissions from.
Awesome. That's cool. Okay. I'm horrible at social media, but I will just say that now. But that's cool that, Instagram has a community for that. We're told we're supposed to boost our social media presence during the programs, and I'm trying to do that. And Instagram is very difficult to kind of navigate at times to get people to like your stuff. But that's really cool that you guys have seen a response. So you release an issue quarterly?
Yeah. So until now, we have been quarterly. Moving forward, we are going to play with kind of a fun schedule because, again, we really want to start stepping up, right? And taking what we've learned and applying it in other ways. And so moving forward, we're going to do 1 volume a year. And so 1 volume is going to be 2 issues. So snoozing kind of has, I think it's a really cool way of doing things. So, it's snoozy and everything is like sleepy based. And so each volume has 1 dream issue and 1 nightmare issue, which really kind of dictates the themes of what we want. We usually work with duology themes. So, for example, in our first volume, it was sunrise and sunset. One of them was dreamy, one of them was nightmarish, right? And so we had been doing 2 volumes per year, and now we're going to kick it back to 1 volume per year. And we are looking to start compiling more specifically themed anthologies.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're super excited.
That's really cool. That the theme, right? Like that's a great thing to talk about. So how did you, obviously the name kind of lends itself to that theme, right? Can you kind of see that, that's an easy 2 + 2 = 4 situation, but what kind of solidified that?
Well, we had some discussion early on about, like the idea of, how cohesive it might feel if we were accepting, like dream versus nightmare stuff. So there was a big talk about, like the ideas of like how we set up, the duology or the duality, I guess you could even say, of like you have the one that's the dream, the one that's the nightmare. And then also, we thought about, with that same coupling, you have this opportunity to show dichotomies, sunrise and sunset. And, then the fun part has been, riffing off of each other, figuring out what couples with other things in strange ways that might not be immediately apparent.
Yeah.
And also trying to come up with themes that, aren't necessarily obvious, when we did our dream issue, we did sunset, you might think about, nightmare, into the day, everything else. But, so that's kind of been part of that process for us.
And a lot of what we do with snoozing is stuff that we have noticed lacking, I guess, in our own journeys to try and get short stories and whatnot published. We saw a hole and where we were having a lot of difficulties finding places that accepted speculative fiction. And then on top of that, we were having difficulty finding themed calls because I personally love a themed call. It makes it easier to, write to the editors and whatnot. And so a lot of that too is kind of inspired by what we're not seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's a good segue into what I was going to ask next was with the online magazine community, obviously you're supporting one another and you're also competitors of one another because you're trying to get you're trying to get writers to write to give you their stories, right? Versus maybe spending time writing for a different magazine. And so is that kind of your prime positioning of, well, look what we're doing that's different, right? These are the holes we're filling. These are we're themed versus, just open submission and you can write whatever you want as long as it fits within a certain genre. Are those kind of the pillars you're trying to build to make yourself stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, I think in terms of trying to stand out, the big way that we're doing that is through the dream and the nightmare stuff. And then everything else, we're just kind of having fun, putting out things that we personally enjoy. But as it relates to the rest of the community, I don't know that it's necessarily a competitive edge as much as it's just about, we struggled to find spaces for our writing. And we want to provide those spaces for other people, right? And so a large part of our online presence, which Suzanne or Kirsten can talk about, is supporting other magazines and doing our best to highlight other open calls and places that accept work like what we accept.
Yeah. We'll share to our Instagram and Facebook stories other open calls to submissions. I mean, we had an entire post where we were like, hey, if you're open for submissions, comment on comment on this post and let us know so that our readers and our writers can see that you're also open for submissions, because a lot of these magazines will let you do simultaneous submissions. So like where you take the same story and you submit it to multiple different magazines, as long as you just let the magazine know, oh, hey, this got accepted somewhere else. Can you please pull it from your submission pile? Which I think is really cool, because then, with that one story, you have multiple opportunities to try and get published.
Yeah. So
no, I wouldn't really think of it as a competition, since everybody in the magazine world, at least on Instagram, is so because we're not the only magazine that does it. All the other magazines that we follow do that as well.
Yeah.
It's a really great community space for writers.
Yeah, and we're gearing up to do collaborative stuff with other magazines too. There's
cool.
a really good one based out of Canada called As Alive Journal. They also accept speculative fiction, so fantasy, sci-fi, horror. And very soon, so we personally have just finished up one submission window, and our next submission window will be for a collaborative issue with them. So we're having a lot of fun working together, figuring out themes and whatnot. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, very, very friendship coded.
I think that's what you need in the writing community, though. I know that as much as my husband kicks me in the butt to get my homework turned in on time, I don't think I would have gotten nearly as far as I did without your guys' support in my own manuscript writing. Because you guys were the ones that were like, hey, we're doing writing, come jump on the Discord, let's get in the voice chat and write together.
Yeah, because at its core, writing is a very lonely enterprise a lot of times, because you're doing it by yourself. But I do think, if anybody's listening to this and you don't have a writing community, I can't stress that enough. You should definitely be looking for people to write with, to bounce your ideas off of, to, even if it's just in brainstorming, but, to share your ideas, get reviews. It's scary to put your work out there, but that's the only way you're going to get better. So, that has transferred very well into the magazine process for us. It was very surprising to me how collaborative so many of the magazines are willing to be. We constantly get messages on Instagram from other magazines saying, hey, will you share this in your story? And then when we ask the same, they reciprocate. So it's been a super cooperative and encouraging experience.
That's really cool. I think the default sometimes, right, is falling into, well, if I'm a magazine, then I'm competitive against all the other magazines, or if I'm in this business, I'm competitive against all these other businesses. And so it's really cool to see when that's not necessarily the case, and that's not the culture, because I think it all contributes to a beautiful literary landscape, and to see all of those magazines coming together to be collaborative in support of the great literary landscape.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really cool. So let's talk a little bit about speculative as the genre of choice. Now, I know we said at the top that it's an online speculative fiction magazine, so you're focusing on the speculative genre. And as Jessi mentioned, that's horror, fantasy, sci-fi. So was it simply because that is the genre you all write in? And if so, that's great. What about speculative excites you all?
Yeah, so we definitely decided to do the speculative lean because that is our genre of choice.
Mm-hmm.
And also, maybe you've noticed this too, but when you're in higher education and academia surrounding creative writing, there's a really big push for literary.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
when you're looking at literary magazines, I guess it's in the name, right? They all want literary fiction. I say all, not all, but so many want literary fiction, right? And all four of us were struggling to publish short stories in other publications because we were realizing, oh no, they want literary. And I just wrote a short story about a bunker, essentially survival bunker in a nuclear sea. Like, they don't want that.
Yeah.
And so we really wanted space for that because speculative fiction is so much fun. I don't know about you guys, but I just really enjoy leaving reality and really exploring all these different places and ideas and finding unrealistic ways to go about things.
Yeah, I mean, I am not so big on the horror aspect. I think I'm the only one out of the four of us that's not really big on the horror aspect. But definitely like fantasy and sci-fi have those. That's what I've read my entire life. And so that is what I know. And so that is what I write because I enjoy it. I like being able to come up with my own rules and regulations and like not having to worry about, oh, like this is how it happens in the real world. So I need to make sure that it's done this specific way. Otherwise, it's going to be wrong. But no, like nobody can tell me that the sky can't be green. So that's my thing. And I don't know, I try to write literary sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially with Max, with all of the flash fiction that she does, a lot of it is very literary. And so I tried to like follow that literary path. And I was just like, oh no, oh no, I am not good at this.
I think we all had that experience of, we stan our literary queen, but we cannot beat her. We tried and tried, but no.
Oh no.
Yeah. What is literary anyway? That's a rhetorical question. It's the question I ask myself all the time, right? Because, and I know, oh man, you can get a lot of writers just revved up about this topic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But, like you look at authors who are considered literary, right? And you have to say it fancy when you say literary.
Yeah.
And, you look at, Margaret Atwood is a great example where she considers herself a literary writer and everyone considers her a literary writer and her prose is beautiful. Sure.
Yeah, gorge.
A Handmaid's Tale is a great book, a well-written book, but it's dystopian speculative fiction too.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, what was it? Randall, I think you said it very succinctly before, but literary will claim the best genre writers.
Yeah.
That's what I was about to say is that, you become literary retroactively. So
it does seem that way, right? Like, think about it. George Orwell's 1984, that's dystopian. That's so dystopian, but but it is also literary, admittedly.
Well, and I mean, and then you have those speculative fiction authors who do write very literary. Like their prose is very, very beautiful.
Sure.
Like I think Laini Taylor like leans that way a little bit because her prose is very beautiful. It's very flowy and poetic. And it's not really like the typical prose you would see in like a fantasy or a sci-fi or a horror novel.
I love that you all chose speculative. Speculative is the best genre, IMO. It is the genre I write in. 100%. It's the genre I read. Who doesn't like an escape, right? Like, and that is what I think speculative gives is an escape to space or an escape to a medieval fantasy world or an escape XYZ, fill in the blank, right? And so that is, I think that's why it makes for the best genre.
Yeah. No arguments.
And if anyone out there disagrees, don't at me, okay?
Yeah. Please do not come to our DMs with reasons why speculative fiction is not worth it.
Listen, the whole reason we're doing this is to prove that speculative fiction is a genre worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are not lower class citizens just because we're not literary.
Yes. Preach. That's great. And so let's dive a little bit deeper into that even. So, okay, now we have speculative. I know it's a broad umbrella. It covers a lot of sub-genres. Talk a little bit about what is your niche? What do you love? Either from a writing or a reading perspective.
Sure. I think, the bigger of the horror heads in the group. I really, really love. Recently, I've been super into like occult horror. In my personal writing, it is almost exclusively horror at this point. But I am also into science fiction. I really love cyberpunk type stuff.
Yeah.
Really, though, for me, it's more of a mood that I'm into.
Yeah.
I really love weird fiction in particular, because I am just a big fan of the absurdism movement. And anything that plays off of absurdist tendencies is generally a hook for me. My own writing, unfortunately, does not get that absurd, but what I love to consume is yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm not what I eat just yet, but I'm hoping one day I'll get there.
We all need goals to strive for.
Yeah, exactly.
I am very much a person who writes what I read. I am very centered in the fantasy world, especially secondary world setting. And my big thing in fantasy, I think, is magical creatures.
Yeah.
Because I think the majority of my ideas have some sort of magical creature as the focus point, or one of the focus points.
Yeah.
So I am huge into like dragons. I have another idea where, there's dire wolves as the main one. So my niche is secondary world setting fantasy for sure.
Well, Jessi has been like, yo, you know what we need to do? Our own subgenre list
Yes.
for Suzanne.
Yes.
So we all like picked up some, and I was like, some of these I don't really know, but this is a perfect opportunity to find out. And I fell in love with science fantasy, to the point where so much of my stuff is starting to bleed to science fantasy or some sort of blends, because why have one when you can have more?
Yep, absolutely.
Science fantasy is like Star Wars, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, Star Wars is more space opera, but you can absolutely call it science fantasy. Science fantasy, I'm wanting to say Jade City is also considered science fantasy, no?
Yeah, I think it's mainly dropped in urban fantasy, but it also, I think it falls into
You know
science
how it
fantasy
is, like
as well.
subgenres, they really bleed into one another quite often, which is why when you go to Goodreads, there's so many tags.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing about the magazine and the speculative fiction aspect of it, and your subgenres of choice and all the other things we talked about. I do have one more question as we come to a close about the magazine itself, and that is, it's 2025. You've been around for a year. 2024 established, right?
Yeah.
What's the dream for the future of the magazine? Where would you like to see it go in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years?
One of the big things that we all kind of agreed on when we started this is that we want it to be a stepping stone to something bigger. And in our minds, the bigger thing is becoming a small press. Publication is really difficult, even at this level, when you're talking about doing short stories and poetry and all of that. It's hard because there's so many people that are writing, right? And then when you start looking into traditional publishing, it gets infinitely more difficult. Because you're looking at finding agents, you're looking at that agent then workshopping your book out to other places and dying on submission and all these terrifying things. We do love the big five for putting out what they put out, but a return to independent publishers is something that a lot of us want. And so eventually that's what we want to become.
I'll say that's an incredible goal, because I think we need more small press. We need more indie. And we are seeing a small shift to that. I think, 10 years ago, indie publishing or even self-publishing was such a such a niche, right? It was such a, yeah, you go do that. That's great for you. And, you know, it was very hard to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And here you are 10 years later, and we've made leaps and bounds in indie publishing and small press. And so I think we're seeing a shift towards that a little bit already. And I think that's a great opportunity to jump into that field, because we all know too that publishing is a hard job, right? It's a lot of work, right? You're talking about, instead of editing now short story pieces, you're now having to edit longer form pieces, or finding people who can edit those pieces, or whatever whatever it may be. And so it gets infinitely harder. And then you have the overhead and the printing of books and the ebook and all that stuff. So I want to applaud you all for thinking big and dreaming big and using your expertise through your education and through your personal experiences to expand that literary landscape. I think we need more writers like you all. Okay, so small press, that's the ultimate goal. So next year, great. I will submit my my novel manuscript, I think.
Yeah, sure. As soon as we're ready for novels, we'll start small, just 1 or 2 a year. We're working our way toward that, again, like with every year, we really want to make sure that we're stepping up our game. And Randall can talk about this, actually, because we are making a pretty big change, I guess you would say, in how we're going to start doing our acceptances.
Yeah, so one thing we've kind of just accepted submissions through our, we'll set up a Google form, we'll get our stories, we'll go through them, we'll parse out which ones we want, and then we'll send out our, acceptance letters. And usually those will be contingent on, just some minor proofreading, some small changes. We'll just submit something back and, work with the author back and forth. Something, though, that, Jessi and I have been working for a long time at trying to build some coaching and editing services to go alongside what we're doing with the magazine. We enjoy, helping on all the levels, from developmental down to, the proofreading. And one thing that we want to start exploring is, working with our authors more closely. So maybe accept fewer pieces, but work with the author on a grander scale to help get the piece to the maximum of what it can be. And we're already starting into that process just a little bit, but we're kind of, focusing on, beginning with those developmental edits, to help an author see, if they have, continuity errors in their story, if they have world building problems. And then, work with them through each stage until we get down to fine tuning, because we found that a lot of the pieces, they were really good in premise, but they had some issues on a developmental level to where we just couldn't quite accept them for the magazine. So we're thinking, if we reach a point where we can, dig into this with our authors and spend more time with each of them, there's not only an opportunity for the author to be able to get their work in front of the world, it's also an opportunity for us to start those stepping stones that lead towards that, ultimate goal of trying to be at press. So
getting writers started on, openly accepting and looking forward to revisions, because I know we don't all love it, but seeing that like big publication really is way more collaborative than I think a lot of us like to think. Trying to introduce that to people on a smaller scale, it's part of literary citizenship.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely it is. And it's so cool to see writers taking literary citizenship seriously. And I think that's very important that we all engage in that. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And Jessi and Randall are great to go to for help with brainstorming, developmental edits. I mean, I know my manuscript would not be the manuscript it is without the help that they gave me when I was like 3 chapters in and was like, this is not going the way that I want it to be going.
I mean, that speaks to the importance of finding your people, right? Finding your writing partners, finding your critique partners, finding those that strikes that delicate balance of building you up, but also not being afraid to be like, this isn't working. Maybe try this, right?
Absolutely.
That gentle hand. I think that is it's a hard combo to find, but when you do, I think it just makes every writer 10, 100 times better.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for all of your time. Thank you so much for jumping on and talking about your magazine. I'm excited to go check it out. and maybe one day submit something. We'll see.
Please, please. We'd love to see it.
Yeah. Maybe one day after I'm finished with my thesis. That's
You don't
kicking my butt currently. So,
Fair.
but awesome. Yeah. So before we close out today, though, well, let's go ahead and wrap up with a little segment I like to call, Hey, Kirsten, Jessi, Suzanne, Randall, what you reading? All right, so we're back with another What You Reading segment. So let's go ahead and dive straight in. So here's the question. What you all reading? And as a bonus, what is the book that's currently sitting at the top of your TBR?
I can go first.
Awesome.
Okay, so currently reading The Golden Raven by Nora Sakovic. 10 out of 10 would recommend, love. And then actually Randall suggested this book, but next on the list is When Haru Is Here.
Awesome.
I am in the middle of 2 books. One is Your Blood, My Bones by Kelly Andrew, and the other one is Slewfoot by Brahm. They're both really wonderful. You should actually go check them out immediately. Or wait till this is over and then please go check them out. Because I've been on a constant quest to find comp titles for my current work in progress. But at the top of my TBR, after my comp quest is finished, is Such Lovely Skin by Tatiana Schlote-Bon. Yeah, we're moving a little bit out of horror into some, sci-fi horror. All horror. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Huge horror fan, so that's really cool. Honestly, this is just my way of filling my TBR. So please keep going.
Oh, sure. I have like 50 books for you.
I have so many. So many. But I am currently reading Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare.
Mm-hmm.
I have been a staunch fan since City of Bones came out in 2007. And I am behind. So I'm like, no, the second book is coming out. So now I need to read the first book. So I'm currently reading Swordcatcher. So far, it's really great. I just started it. So I'm like done with the first chapter, which took like 40 minutes to read. It is a very long first chapter.
Yeah.
And then next up on my TBR is Murtaugh by Christopher Paolini, because the Aragon series was my introduction to dragons. So I really need to read that one as well.
I love dragons. Speaking of a creature that also exists, dragons.
Same.
Still to this day. I'll die on that hill.
Have you seen the thing where they're talking about T-Rexes? T-Rexes might have been dragons.
Love that.
They also could have been giant chickens.
Because they're arms. They're not arms. They're wings.
Yeah. Or giant chicken dragons. And
but
that's totally
it
fine
could
too.
actually be one of those equations where there's equal signs on both sides. So dragon equal T-Rex equal chicken, or you can swap the order.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm picturing it in my head and I'm already a believer. So thank you.
Well, I guess they would be more wyvern than dragon, but nuances.
Oh dear,
Semantics.
They fly and they have claws. and they breathe fire. I'll die on that hill too.
All right. I am a crazy person. I have like 6 or 7 books that I'm reading at all times, and I just pick one up at depending on which one I'm in the mood for. I'm currently reading through manga. I'm reading Vinland Saga right now in it. I'm also reading The Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne. It's the last book in his Bloodsworn trilogy. And I am finishing up the 4th Stormlight Archives book right now by Brandon Sanderson. And my next one on my TBR is going to be book 5. As soon as I finish book 4, I'm cracking the next one. So I'll be on it for probably 6 months because I can't stick to a book. But
hey, that's all right. It's a method that works.
Yeah.
A method of madness, but it works. So that's great.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Well, thank you all again for sharing your TBRs and what you're reading currently. Before I let you all go, though, for today, where can listeners find you all for more information on the magazine if they have questions or further questions on the magazine, but also where can they find you all as individual writers?
So our Instagram handle is Snoozine Speculative. I think Facebook is just Snoozine.
Yes.
And then Threads is going to be the same as our Instagram. So the Snoozine Speculative for our magazine. And then once the website is back up and running, is that still snoozine.com or is the URL changing?
URL is changing. Really, the best advice right now is keep us on socials.
Yeah.
And because, we'll do a big announcement for website once it is ready to go.
Awesome.
And I'm on Instagram at Randall Madden Wright. That's the best place to see my stuff at the moment. No website yet. It's coming in the future though. So
Love that.
Yeah, my Instagram handle is crazy. It's kirsten.j.genslingerwrites.
Nice.
If you want to try and spell it, it's Kirsten. But yeah, I haven't decided how I want to show my name as an author, so that's just what I got so far.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Gunslinger is giving gunslinger, so I would expect westerns out of you.
No westerns. No.
It feels like a very natural fit, though. I feel like
does.
maybe you need to just lean into it and see what happens.
I mean, maybe I have a space opera in my future.
Okay.
Okay.
listen,
Great.
I'm just saying cowboy dragons. I don't think it's been done yet.
Oh, that's actually a
Cowboy
really good
dragons.
idea.
Mhm.
Cowboy dragons, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with mine, but mine's at SM Bjornson Writes. Or it might just even be at SM Bjornson. Who even knows? Too many socials.
It's going to be easy for the listeners anyway. We're going to put all of these in our show notes. So you all have the easy way of just going into the show notes and clicking on any of the links that you would like to go click on. But definitely, at the very least, go check out the magazine's Instagram, follow it, subscribe. And subscribe, sure, why not? We'll use all the words, all the words that everyone uses, all the buzzwords, right?
Yes.
That way you can stay up to date with the magazine, and when the website comes out, you can check that out as well. So thank you all again so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed our conversation today, and keep doing what you're doing, keep writing, and I cannot wait to see where you all go in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Ink to Paper Stories and Interviews. If you enjoyed today's show, please take a moment to leave us a rating and a review on whatever podcast platform you use to access the episode. It's the best way to help the show grow and reach a wider audience. If you are a writer, author, or storyteller across any medium and you want to appear on a future episode of the show, please send me an email at h.a.spectorwrites@gmail.com or send me a message on Bluesky at haspectorwrites.bsky.social. As always, keep promoting your local libraries, support your local community bookstores by buying books, including banned ones, and keep on supporting the storytellers you know and love. All of these things help support a healthy and thriving literary landscape, whether you are a writer or a reader. And I will catch you all in the next chapter.